The patient's condition is worsening. We need to act now. I understand. What can I do? Stay with them. Monitor closely. Dear friends, subscribe to my channel Viral Story Hub. Make my channel famous.
A wealthy man watched his maid leave home secretly at night, suspicion growing heavy in his chest with every silent step. He followed her quietly through crowded streets, unaware this decision would soon change everything he believed about trust. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments, what time is it and where are you watching from? Let's start. The hospital corridor lights reflected in his eyes as he saw her standing outside pediatric ICU with trembling hands. Confusion replaced anger instantly, his heart beating fast as fear whispered that something was terribly wrong here tonight. He stayed hidden behind the wall, watching her press her forehead to the glass, silently crying without any support nearby. Her worn bag rested beside her feet, the same bag he once mocked for looking old and unnecessary at his home. Doctors passed by without noticing her pain, but he saw every tear falling, each one cutting deeper into his conscience. Memories of harsh words he spoke returned sharply, making his chest feel heavier with regret he never expected to face. He realized she was not hiding secrets from him. She was hiding pain, protecting something precious far beyond her dignity. A nurse approached gently, speaking softly, and the maid nodded with fear. No parent could ever truly hide from eyes. At that moment, suspicion died quietly inside him, replaced by a truth that would soon break his heart completely. A doctor spoke gently, and the maid listened with folded hands, her eyes begging for hope beyond fear and helplessness. He leaned closer to hear, heart pounding loudly, sensing the truth he avoided was about to reveal itself fully today. The words, pediatric surgery and urgent condition, echoed, making his breath slow as guilt quietly entered his mind. He remembered the child he once saw in her phone photo, smiling brightly, never imagining she was fighting for life. Tears rolled down her face silently, yet she stood strong, carrying courage heavier than any burden he ever knew. He saw her remove a small envelope, counting money carefully, each note trembling between sacrifice and desperation. It was her salary savings, untouched for years, now offered without hesitation to save the life she loved most. The nurse accepted the envelope kindly, but the amount was not enough, and fear returned stronger than before. She lowered her head, whispering prayers with shaking lips, surrendering everything she had to unseen mercy above. The millionaire's chest tightened painfully, realizing his comfort was built beside someone silently fighting storms daily. Regret surfaced like a storm inside him, replaying every suspicion, every insult he once believed was justified. He stepped back slowly, knowing the truth had begun to change him, yet the hardest moment was still ahead. He watched as she called someone quietly, voice breaking, asking for help she clearly knew might never come in time tonight. Her strength began to fade for a moment, yet she straightened again, refusing to fall while her child still needed her courage. He remembered accusing her of stealing once, and shame burned deeper than anything he had ever experienced before. The corridor felt colder suddenly, as truth exposed his arrogance and stripped away every excuse he once believed. Through the ICU glass, he saw a small figure on the bed, machines blinking steadily, life hanging on fragile hope. The sight shattered something inside him, replacing pride with an ache he could neither ignore nor escape now. She pressed her palm gently against the glass, whispering words only a mother's heart could understand fully. He saw love there, pure and fierce, stronger than wealth, stronger than status, stronger than every judgment he made. The nurse returned with forms to sign, and the maid hesitated, fear rising at the cost she could not afford alone. Her trembling hands revealed exhaustion, yet her eyes still held determination that refused to surrender easily. In that moment, he understood clearly she was fighting a battle alone that no one had ever helped her carry. His suspicion finally turned into silent guilt, and he knew he could not remain hidden from truth any longer. He stepped forward slowly, no longer hiding, each step heavy with realization he had judged without knowing truth. She turned in surprise, fear crossing her face, thinking she might lose her job even in this painful moment tonight. He spoke her name softly, voice unfamiliar even to himself, carrying regret he had never expressed before. Words struggled to form, but his eyes revealed apology stronger than anything pride once allowed him to say. She lowered her gaze respectfully, still calling him Sir, even while standing in the darkest moment of her life. He asked about the child gently, and her voice broke as she explained the illness she hid for many months. Long hospital visits, unpaid leave, silent sacrifices, every detail struck him like truth he ignored willingly before. She never wanted sympathy, only time to save her daughter, protecting her dignity even through unbearable hardship. He looked through the ICU glass again, seeing innocence fighting for breath while machines guarded fragile hope. Wealth felt meaningless there, surrounded by quiet suffering that no amount of pride could justify or ignore. For the first time in years, he felt small, realizing humanity was greater than status he valued blindly. He knew this moment demanded action, not words, because redemption begins when silence finally chooses courage. He asked the doctor calmly about the treatment cost, voice steady, though guilt shook every thought within his heart tonight. The amount was overwhelming for her, yet small for him, and that truth struck deeper than any accusation he made. He turned to her gently, saying he would take responsibility, not as charity, but as apology for his blindness. She stepped back in disbelief, refusing at first, dignity guarding her pride even in desperate circumstances tonight. He assured her quietly, promising no condition, only support, because some mistakes demand action beyond words alone. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they carried fragile hope she never allowed herself to imagine before. Forms were signed quickly, and the medical team prepared urgently, moving with renewed purpose and focused determination. He stood beside her silently, not as employer, but as a human learning compassion through painful realization tonight. Memories of suspicion haunted him still, yet each moment of help began softening the weight he carried within. She whispered gratitude through tears, yet he lowered his gaze, knowing forgiveness must be earned through sincerity. The corridor no longer felt cold, as shared humanity slowly replaced distance that once defined their relationship. Redemption had begun quietly, not through wealth, but through humility, rising where pride once ruled without question. Hours passed slowly in silence, every ticking second stretching fear and hope between two restless human hearts tonight. She sat with folded hands, whispering prayers softly, while exhaustion quietly claimed the strength she fought to hold. He remained beside her, without words, learning presence can comfort pain that language often fails to heal completely. Doctors moved in and out with calm urgency, their focused faces reflecting battles fought beyond ordinary human sight. He offered water gently, and she accepted with trembling hands, gratitude visible even through overwhelming worry tonight. Memories of his suspicion returned again, but this time they fueled resolve to stand beside truth without hesitation. Through the glass, lights shifted, signaling progress, and fragile hope began rising where despair once dominated thoughts. She asked nothing more from him, yet his silent support became the strength she no longer had within herself. For the first time, he understood responsibility beyond wealth, realizing compassion demands presence more than privilege ever could. A nurse finally approached them, expression careful, carrying news that would soon decide the direction of their lives. Their eyes met briefly, sharing fear and hope together, no longer divided by status or misunderstanding anymore. In that quiet moment, he prayed silently, not for redemption alone, but for a life worth saving beyond pride. The doctor returned with calm eyes, saying the surgery was successful, but recovery would need time and careful attention. She covered her face with shaking hands, relief pouring out as tears carried gratitude she could never fully express aloud. He felt a quiet warmth rise within, knowing hope had survived where fear once stood, unchallenged and overwhelming tonight. They were allowed to see the child briefly, machine steady, fragile life continuing its silent fight toward healing slowly. She whispered her daughter's name softly, voice filled with love, stronger than every hardship she had endured alone. He stood at the door respectfully, witnessing a bond that reshaped everything he believed about strength and sacrifice forever. The child's small fingers moved slightly, and that simple motion felt greater than any victory wealth could ever bring. She looked back at him with tearful eyes, no word spoken, yet forgiveness seemed present within her silent gratitude. He lowered his head humbly, accepting the moment not as heroism, but as a lesson written by painful truth. Outside the room, he promised himself quietly he would protect this trust with actions, not temporary emotion alone. The weight of guilt had not vanished, but purpose replaced it, guiding him toward change he never imagined before. For the first time in years, he walked without pride, choosing compassion as the only path worth following forward. Days later, the child opened her eyes fully, and hope filled the room where fear once ruled every silent breath completely. She smiled weakly at her mother, and that fragile smile healed wounds no medicine alone could ever truly reach. He visited quietly each day, not as employer, but as someone learning humanity through responsibility and sincere care. The maid returned home with dignity stronger than before, her trust rebuilt through actions he continued to honor daily. He changed within, treating every worker with respect, understanding unseen struggles may live behind quiet faces everywhere. Regret remained a lesson, but compassion became his guide, shaping choices that once were driven only by pride. Their lives moved forward differently, connected by truth revealed through pain, sacrifice, and unexpected human kindness. He realized suspicion destroys silently, but understanding rebuilds what judgment once carelessly breaks beyond repair. The hospital corridor that witnessed sorrow now held memory of transformation neither of them would ever forget. Sometimes redemption begins when one person chooses empathy over doubt, even when truth arrives painfully late. This was not just her victory, but his awakening, proving humanity grows when hearts accept responsibility sincerely. The story ends here,